he left the room, told me to pull myself together, sort myself out, and went out. He was gone for about 5 minutes. I just curled up in a ball on the floor. And as I say, 10 minutes or so later, he come and he let me out. And I was taken back to the recreation room, the association room, and straight back with all the other lads, you know what I mean? But I was different. It wasn't me anymore. I felt so different. I was looking around. It was like I was in a different world. I didn't look at people the same anymore, anyone. So I thought, that's just a one-off. I thought, it's never going to happen again. Deal with it, forget about it, and get on with it. But it wasn't. Every single day then, for over 2 weeks, he took me up to that room, and every single day, he did something different. I don't really want to go into detail, but he had all kinds of things, you know, that he wanted you to do, like wearing suspenders and stockings and ladies' underwear and using a vibrator on you and things like that. But it kind of wore me down to the point where I accepted it. Even when I went up there after a few days, I knew what was going to happen. I knew where it was going. I was looking forward to the cigarette that he'd give you. You know, that sounds mad, but that was the only saving grace, the fact that you could have a cigarette. You know, because you knew what was coming. It was second nature. And then it wore me down that much that one day I was in the dining room, cleaning up in the dining room, and an officer walked past. I'd been crying to myself, and he said to me, not in a nice way, "What's wrong with you?" And I lied. I said to him that I'm too far away from home, because I was near 200 miles away from home, and I can't get any visits. And he said, put in for the transfer. And I thought, is it that easy? You put in for the transfer and you're gone. And I did. I put in. You had to tell the officer that you wanted to go on the governor's list the next day. And the next morning, I went to the governor, told him that I wanted to move closer to home so that I can get visits. He okayed it, and I was going the next morning. And that was overwhelming, but there was that doubt, that dread. I thought, he can't let me go now. If he lets me go, he knows I'm just going to go and tell him what's happened. He can't let me out of his sight. And I made a vow to myself, no, you don't need to tell anyone. It doesn't matter anyone. Nobody will ever believe you. Just keep it to yourself. Don't tell anyone anything. And that's what I resolved to do. And I was good at it. I was quite successful. The anxious moments from leaving Medmsley itself in the van all the way to Rochdale, Buckley Hall in Rochdale, I was dying for a wee. And I mean, in agony by the time I got there, but I wouldn't ask them to stop, because I just wanted to get there, just get out of that van into somewhere else. And I dwelled on it for a while in there. I got into a fight in the dining hall with one of the inmates in there, or trainees as they were known, and the officers jumped in to break it up. And being the type of lad I was and the background I had, when you got into a fight with anyone, because it was a rough area, you just threw whatever you could, whenever you could, to win that fight. And that's what I did. And he inadvertently hit an officer. But I didn't know I'd hit him. I just had. That night, that officer came up to me, up to the dormitory, and took me out of the dormitory and walked me from there to the top of the landing, at the other end of the building. And all the way along there, I was dreading. I didn't know what he was going to do. There was all kinds going through my head. And I actually wet myself on that walk. And then when we got to the landing, he just laid into me and proper battered me. I curled up in a ball at the top of the landing and took all the kicks and punches and everything until he wore himself out. And when he'd finished, I was grateful for it. That was it. That was all that was going to happen, you know. And later on in my sentence there, we used to make cigarettes, find any stumps you can, and make a cigarette out of a Bible page and smoke it in the toilet, you know, a few drags. And I'd done that, and he had a cigarette in the toilet, and the officer that had beaten me up on the landing had come in and caught me smoking. I thought, I'm in for another beating here. but he just told me to put it out. Now you can lose time for that. You know, all of that. There was no punishment for him. So I think he was regretful for beating me up. He might have realised that I hadn't meant to hit him, that I wasn't any trouble, or, you know, there was no maliciousness from me. It was just an accident. So he always went to great pains to be nice to me. So Buckley Hall really was a different place compared to Medhamsley. It really was. And I felt happy there. So...
When did you first start to talk about what happened at Medhamsley? What made you talk about it?
Well, the biggest trigger was the birth of my son in 1995, and he was born 3 months premature. He had problems with balance. He had 80% loss of hearing in one ear, 20% loss in the other, which affected his balance. He couldn't walk because he'd always pull to the right and bump into things and what have you. So he was going to a place called the Child Development Centre, the CDC, and you had all kinds of professionals there, nurses, teachers, social workers, you know, all looking after him and trying to get him to do things and being really friendly. And I started thinking that they were all beasts. I thought they had an ulterior motive. You know, why did they have to see him naked? You know, things like that. And everybody I looked at, I thought was a beast. But that heightened as time went on, as my son developed a little bit more. That heightened. I was looking at my own neighbours and everything with suspicion. I'd be out at work and somebody had mentioned something about a child being abused and what have you, and I'd go off my cake. I'd just lose it, depression, until it reached the stage that I decided to take my own life, and which wasn't an easy decision. And then I went out to do that and failed, and ended up speaking to a friend, and I had a good talk with her and a good cry with her, and she told me I've got to tell my wife, you know, because it's not fair on her. So I did. I told my doctor, and then the doctor came out. He gave me a sedative that gave me a great night's sleep, but the next morning I felt really depressed about telling them, shamed more than anything. I didn't want people to know, you know, and I thought, right, you've told them now, that'll help you in itself. Just get on with it. Just get yourself back into work properly and get on with it. Well, it wasn't as easy as that. You know, I think the first time I really started thinking about, or not thinking, that my son was in danger from paedophiles was when he went to university, right up until he started at university, because he'd become a man, and he'd become a very intelligent man and a very wise man as well. So I knew he wasn't in any danger. He didn't come from the same background as me. You know, he just wasn't going to face the same dangers. So I started to relax a bit then, and concentrate on me and work and my family. But then I successfully put it behind me to a degree. I'd still have triggers, there'd still be things that had come along that had set me off, but I could cope with it much, much better. And then I saw him on the news that he'd been found guilty in the first trial in 2003, February 2003, and that was it. I took to my bed. It was overwhelming. It was like a tidal wave of emotion and everything. And that's when my wife said, you've got to come forward, you've got to go and seek proper help. And I did. And that's got us to where we are today. Despite the government, despite the police, in spite of them, because they've not helped us in any way whatsoever. They've done as little as they possibly could to get justice for us, and everything to make it go away. They've lied, they've kept information back. So it's not an easy thing, but it's got to be done, because if I don't do it, who is going to do it? And others lads that will think that, you know, yeah, we'll do it. But if they go through the same experiences as me and the other lads that went through the early trials, they'll give up. Because you do, because it wears you down. It absorbs your life. So that led to the book and the songs, and hopefully to get it dramatised, which isn't looking likely now, but
Do you think the book sort of helped you deal with?
it was very cathartic because it made me realise a lot of the things, you know, that I've done over the years before I went there and after I went there, mainly after I got out of there. It's made me realise that it wasn't me. I wasn't bad. I was naughty, but I wasn't the bad lad. And it made me realise what type of person my mother was as well. My mother was just overwhelmed with too much responsibility. She had 8 children, all born within the space of 12 years. And 3 of them were babies, the twins, Diane and Wayne, and Mandy, who was 10 months old when the twins were born. And the responsibility she had was overwhelming. So she abdicated that responsibility to the older kids, mainly Lynn and Barry at that point. And I don't know, and maybe she felt guilty as time went on. It just got worse and worse, you know, at home. So until we reached the point where we could fend for ourselves, and then things changed. And then my father dying in 1982, that made a big difference. My mother treated she had grandkids then. She treated them the way she should have treated us. She overwhelmed them with love and presents and everything. You know what I mean? She even started to treat her own kids a little bit better, the younger ones and everything. So all of that changed.
Did you ever get visits from your mum while you were in the prison system, or any contact, or did you
Not.
ever feel comfortable enough to tell her anything about what
I
happened?
would never have told her, never, because I wouldn't have been believed. I wouldn't have told anyone because they wouldn't have believed me. The best way my mother was, what she'd do if you'd been accused of doing anything wrong or she thought you'd done something wrong, she'd torture you. I'm not saying torture like burn you and put you on a rack and things like that. I'm on about making you kneel in front of her between her legs, and she'd ask you, did you do it? You'd say no, and she'd slap you across the face. And then she'd ask you again, and it'd be another slap across the face if you said no. So the best way to counter that was to just admit to it, which I did. I'd admit to everything anybody else did. I'd just admit to it, take the beating, it's over and done with then, instead of this long drawn out torture. You know, so I don't know whether she was trying to exonerate herself by getting us to admit it. It would just, if we say, yeah, we were lying, we did do it, that would exonerate her. She wouldn't feel guilty about the torture, about the slapping and the beatings and everything, because she was justified. We had done it. We are little bastards. Sorry about the language, but
Did you feel let down at all by your family or your mum for what happened, or not feeling comfortable enough to tell them about what happened?
I never ever felt let down by my mother. Although after my dad died, and I was at home, I was the oldest one at home then. Lynn and Barry had moved on. I had more of an influence. I used to clean the house. I used to do all the washing, my mum's washing, everybody's washing, because the house was always a mess, always dirty clothes, food and all kinds everywhere. So I got all that in order. And my mother treated me with a lot more respect than I'd ever had when my father was alive. But the way she treated Diane, especially Diane, and Sharon and Wayne, was the same. It was horrendous. She battered Diane to get her to admit removing a bulb from the bedroom. And the only way, as I've illustrated there, the slapping across the face. That's what she did. Every time she'd slapped across the face when Diane said, no, I didn't move it. And she just kept doing that until Diane admitted to moving it, whether she'd done it or not. And one day there, I was courting my now wife then, and she was there when my mother was doing this to Diane, by the way. And I just blew up and told her exactly what I thought. You're not doing that, you're out of order, you're bang out of order. But my brothers and sisters all jumped to my mother's side. My mother, she pretended to have a bit of a fainting fit when I was throwing, you know, the accusations at her. Anyway, we went to bed that night, me and my girlfriend, and we got up the next morning, and my mother was still in bed. And My sister Diane was working in the kitchen, cleaning the kitchen. I was in the living room, dusting and what have you in the living room. And it was gone midday. My mother got up and she sat down at the table under the window in the living room and started to play Patience. And then she shouted in, "Diane, make me a cup of tea." It was never, "Diane, will you make me a cup of tea, please?" Or with me, "Raymond, make me a cup of tea." It was, "Diane, make me a cup of tea." And I was particularly fed up because of what had gone on the night before, and then her coming down and doing that, and I lost it with her, proper lost it with her. She picked me guitar up and started to hit me with the guitar, which I took out of her hands. And the only way to control her, I pushed her into a corner, and I told her everything, all the things she'd done and what have you. And we were thrown out then, me and Denise. We were on the streets. We only spent one night on the streets until I found somewhere to go. But we were thrown out, and Denise was pregnant. And the day after that, she miscarried. So that I blame my mother for that. I had a lot of bitterness with my mother over that, you know what I mean? But we just stayed away because she was telling everybody, all the people I grew up with and everything, what a bad lad I was, and I threatened to hit her and everything. Never done that in my life, but that's what she said to everyone. So we went away, but my mother changed. She started to treat the others better, you know what I mean? Maybe it was because of what I'd done and said. Maybe she'd, woken up and realised that it's, yeah.
Do you think in some way, from the way that she treated you growing up, that sort of why you were so tolerant of the beatings when you were in prison?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Pain never ever bothered me. I didn't want it, but it never really bothered me. You can beat me all day long, so yeah, it prepared me for violence, but it certainly didn't prepare me for what husband did. Nowhere near. How do you prepare someone for that?
Do you think if she was here now and she could see everything that you were trying to achieve, do you think she'd behave any differently towards you?
Yeah, before my mother died, she'd already come round. I got full respect off my mother from then on. She didn't do anything bad in front of me at all from then on. So if she'd have been alive today and seen me, I've spent 28 years since last being locked up. Longer. It's not, it's 35 years. Going on 36 years. Working and looking after myself and looking after my family. I had my own taxi, hackney cab, everything. I had my own burger bar for selling burgers. I was always doing something. I was buying and selling cars, and I was well respected, and I got some of that respect off my mother. And if she'd have known what went on in Medmsley, I have no doubt she'd have been devastated. I had no doubt that she loved us. She just didn't know how to show it. As I said, she abdicated her responsibility as a mother early on when we were young, and she justified that in her own head. So I'd give anything to have my mother back now, and to see, that we've all thrived, yeah.
In terms of what's happened with prosecuting those people that did those awful things to you since, where are you sort of up to with that? Do you feel like it's going in the right direction, like you're getting some form of justice? Or do you think you've got a long way to go yet?
I think we've still got a long way to go, in respect that when Operation Seabrook was opened, I think it was 2014, and they started to the police opened it up again, as I said, Medmsley and what have you, and more stuff was coming forward, and I thought we were getting on leaps and bounds, but then it come down to, they'd whittled it down to 31 cases we're going to be put in front of the Crown Prosecution Service. In all this time, when this investigation was going on, we were getting no information from them. They wouldn't update us on anything. We still hadn't received the 40,000 pages of information of people going into the police stations reporting it and other things against husband. So we were treated with contempt, really. I think we were an embarrassment. They just wanted us to go away, but we weren't. And we were steadfast and we stuck at it until we got to the point now. These files have been sent to the CPS. They should have been dealt with a long time ago because they promised April this year, then they promised summer this year. We're now into winter this year, and there's still been no decision from the CPS. The person running, the head of the inquiry in Operation Seabrook, the head has been changed 4 times now, you know, in all these years. So nobody's really up to speed on it. It just seems as though we're still being treated with contempt. We're still kept hanging on. I can't live every day. Every day when I turn the TV on, I'm looking for news, I'm waiting for news. Or the postman comes, I'm waiting for a letter saying, yes, we're prosecuting these, yes, he's admitted this, you know, and it's just not happening. They keep fobbing us off and fobbing us off. But as I said, we've got a new MP on it now, and she's got her teeth into it. She's only a young lady, and she's going to push it along, and I'm quite confident that it's going to be sorted out quite soon, if not before Christmas.
So what is the outcome that you're hoping for?
Well, every single one of those officers that made statements saying they knew what was going on and then lied, saying they couldn't help us, they should be prosecuted. And this isn't out of any kind of retribution for them. It's about prevention, because people aren't seen to be pulled up and prosecuted or whatever for their wrongs, where children are concerned more than anything. It will go on and on. The paedophiles nowadays, because it's so difficult to get at the kids anymore within the care system and everything, still get at them, but they're insidious and they will find any way to get there, you know. And like, you have people that go into the social services just with the intention of being able to get at children. You have people going to be priests just for the intention of being to abuse children. Neville Husband did it when his career in the prison service was over. He got ordained in the United Reformed Church, a branch of the Church of England, and he was a full-blown priest. And then he was taking kids on camping trips and abusing them on the camping trips. So he always found another way to get at children, and that's what will happen today, unless everybody involved all around these children stands up and does their duty to prevent it from happening. It's just going to go on and on and on, and it's perpetuated on and on and on. You have the government think that giving somebody a fistful of money will make it go away. That's the end of the story. And in reality, that's true, because they do. Because the pain they've suffered to get as far as they have to get that compensation, they just want it over with. They just want it ended. They're wrong about us, because we're not. We know, we've got it all. Documented statements, documented evidence about everything that went on there, including the police themselves, including the Home Office. So it's just a matter of getting that in the public eye. Once that's in the public eye, there's no hiding place for them. And then, as I said, anybody else going to work in the youth justice system or social services or care system will know they have a duty and they must report anything. If it's not done that way, there's no hope for the kids of the future. No.
Did you ever get the opportunity to speak to Neville Husband again after what happened?
No.
Or did you ever see him again or anything?
No. I went to his house.
How did that feel when you went to his house?
Well, I went to his house with a gun, and the intention was to kill him. I wasn't going to ask him any questions. He'd been out of jail about 2 months, and I'd been searching for him because I was told he wasn't going home, he was going to a probation hostel. I tracked down all the probation hostels around that area. I couldn't find him. I'd looked up his address, still within Medemsley, or Medemsley in Concert, and I got a Google Earth map and everything of where he lived. I paid a drug dealer £300 for the gun, a few bullets, and then I drove up to his house. I went using Google Earth, I went round the back of his house, because it was quite a big house, and climbed over 2 or 3 gardens until I got to his, and then hid behind some trees and bushes and waited for him to come to the window. you know, to the back kitchen or to come out, whatever. But the only sign of life I saw was a wizened old woman, and she was in the kitchen, and she soon went. And after being in the garden for quite a while, and I drank some Jack Daniels, quite a bit of it, I just needed to go. You know what I mean? I was uncomfortable. I was damp, and it was a comedy really. Trying to get out, I decided that I'm just going to go around to the front door and knock on his door, and when he answers the door, put the gun and shoot him. So, as I said, it was comical trying to get out. I fell off the fence, climbing into the next garden. The back door of that house opened, the lights went on and everything, because I'd made quite a noise, and I just lay down in the damp and muck and everything, concealed, and that they went. So then I climbed out of there, went back over the other gardens to his front door, walked up his path, with the gun in my hand, and I was going to go and knock on the door, but I threw up in his path and vomited everywhere, and turned around and went. I drove from there then to Whitley Bay, and parked on the seafront at Whitley Bay, and I rung Colin, who was one of the lads that was in Medhamsley, and I asked him, did he mind if I come up for a couple of days? And he said no. I said, I'll be up there in about 4 hours. And he said, fine. So I sat on the beach, I sat on the front in my car, and thinking over and over and over again. I'm still drinking the Jack Daniels as well. And I just decided that I can't do it anymore, just can't do it anymore. And I thought, I'll kill myself, because I didn't have the bottle to kill him. I'll just kill myself. But I didn't, thank God. And I threw the gun as far as I could into the sea, into the North Sea, and then got a little bit of a sleep in the car, and then went round to Collins the next day as if nothing had happened. So.
How did you feel going back to Medhamsley recently? What was that like walking around there?
It was quite overwhelming really, because I hadn't seen it for so long. But it was exactly how I remember it. The fence, the buildings themselves have all changed. There's new buildings there compared to the ones that were there. But the place itself and the layout seems exactly the same. And the drive down the driveway to the gatehouse and things like that, all exactly the same. It's exactly how I remembered it. As you used to have to run round the fence, as I said, and I walked round it on the outside this time, and you could. Every step was an effort. It was the memories that were coming back into your head, you know, as you're walking along. But
who do you feel the most let down by from what happened?
The Home Office and the police. They're the two main ones. The police, because people were going to them straight out of when they were released from Medhamsley, going to them to report Neville Husband, and they were being told to go away. One lad in particular, in 1977, when he left Medhamsley, he went straight to Consett Police Station, told the sergeant on the desk what had happened to him. The sergeant's words were, do you know how serious it is to make a false accusation against a prison officer? You'll end up back in there. Now go. And he then left there and he never went home. Never went home for years. I don't think he's been back home since. He went to the Lake District, and he changed his whole life in the Lake District until it come back to haunt him. And the trigger for him was pretty much the same as us. Having children of their own, knowing it's not